Please allow me to begin with the obvious. The vast majority of video game adaptations range from profoundly mediocre to embarrassingly terrible. Whether put on television or the big screen, whether live action or animated, games are still looking for a similar renaissance that occurred for comic book movies to take them out of the Dark Ages. I believe that this can happen, and that a future version of this list will look totally different once a few writers and directors start to take the process as seriously as, sadly, only a few have so far. But let's celebrate the ones that have, and have laid a little bit of groundwork for a brighter future. My name is Drew Kreisman. I am one half of the Final Fantasy Weekly podcast, and these are my picks for the top 10 video game adaptations of all time.
Hey, can I get you a drink?
Gin and tonic, por favor.
It definitely isn't a gin and tonic, but it is on the house.
Gracias.
Hey, whoa, let me guess. Pina colada?
Number 10, The Tomb Raiders and Uncharted. I still need to see the Uncharted movie, but have heard from enough fans of the game and film to feel comfortable including it here with its Tomb Raider cousins. Whether you prefer the original pair of movies starring Angelina Jolie as Lara Croft, or the new reboot featuring Alicia Vikander, it's hard to mess up treasure hunting for ancient artifacts in exotic locations, and luckily, for the most part, Hollywood didn't go out of its way to ruin this tried and true formula. They aren't great, but these are still fun movies. Number 9, Silent Hill. Silent Hill gets most of the important things right. The town, the monsters, and music all set the proper tone, and the story fits well enough with its video game counterparts. The acting and writing can be a bit shoddy at times, and it's hard to say the film comes anywhere close to being the absolute nightmare fuel that the games could be. But there also just isn't anything insultingly off about Silent Hill, and sadly that's a huge win for most of these adaptations. It's not as good as the games by a long shot, but it's serviceable. Number 8, Street Fighter.
For you, the day bison graced your village was the most important day of your life. But for me, it was Tuesday.
Okay, let me be clear. This is not what you would actually call a good movie. Nor is it a good adaptation of Street Fighter. Even before these characters would be fleshed out in later games, this flick still chose to stray away from the handful of tropes we did know about them. The Super American has an Austrian accent, and Ken and Ryu are just some dudes? It's a dumb romp filled with nonsensical event after nonsensical event. But through the lens of 90s nostalgia and out of appreciation for a few standout moments, it had to make this list. Among its legitimately good attributes are a stellar and sadly final performance by Raul Julia as M. Bison, a fantastic hype speech from Jean-Claude Van Damme's Colonel Guile, and Ming-Na Wen starring as Chun-Li, beginning her quest to become the queen of nerd media. It's also legitimately pretty funny at times. There's just like one street fight? Anyway, moving on. Number 7, Rampage. This should not have worked, and I have no idea why this was even made, but Rampage was quite a bit of fun. It never hurts to add Rock the Dwayne Johnson to, well, literally anything, and it is truly incredible the amount of chemistry he develops with a building-sized CGI ape. Fully aware of how ridiculous its premise is, Rampage doesn't short us on what we came to see. Giant monsters destroying things and fighting each other. It manages to deliver plenty of entertaining over-the-top action, a few legit laughs, and a pretty cool story about friendship. Number 6, Mortal Kombat, the OG and the reboot. Look, the original Mortal Kombat movie is way better than it is ever given credit for. Like Street Fighter, I guess they'll be compared forever, it had some iffy writing and acting, also the special effects have aged like bananas. But the choreography is fantastic, and there's actually a lot of our favorite characters from the games fighting each other. What a concept! Also, most of them are done full justice, even if some understandable liberties were taken with their appearance. Outside of Scorpion and Sub-Zero, who were frustratingly relegated to henchman status, the Mortal Kombat movie actually tells the Mortal Kombat story, simple as it was at the time. The 2020 reboot arguably does an even better job of this on all fronts, but was unfortunately undercut by a wholly unnecessary new main character. At least Scorpion and Sub-Zero finally got to shine, so I'm including it here. The less said about Annihilation, the better. Number 5. Sonic 1 and 2. Remember how video games are like fun and stuff? Yeah, well, the Sonic movies get that. I'm nowhere near as up to date with the lore of this series as many out there, being mostly familiar with the old 2D Sonics with limited storytelling. But I know a good, kind-hearted, family-friendly movie when I see one. Jim Carrey is perfect as Dr. Robotnik, while Ben Schwartz is somehow even more perfect as the spiky blue hedgehog. There's lots of colors, lots of laughter, and maybe a few tears along the way if you're a big ol' sap like me. Sonic succeeds in spades, though, where most other adaptations of this kind fail. It fully embodies the spirit and feel of its source material without for a second being embarrassed or apologizing for it. Number 4. Detective Pikachu. Given how difficult it has proven to make successful one-to-one adaptations of game stories, it's tempting to think that the Detective Pikachu formula may be the secret sauce. It brilliantly decides to tell its own original story and simply sets it in a world where Pokemon are as normal as cats and dogs. Deadpool himself, Ryan Reynolds, nails the Pikachu act, and the young actors are impressive. Not confined to anything specifically that came before it, Detective Pikachu manages to celebrate all different elements and eras of Pokemon, while also setting itself apart as something unique. Another cheesy but legitimately heartwarming, family-oriented story, it's one of those movies that can be enjoyed by literally any person with an open mind. Number 3. The Final Fantasies. First of all, yes, these count as adaptations. The first Final Fantasy feature film, The Spirits Within, resembles the games the least on the surface, but still draws inspiration from them for multiple themes and character concepts. Also, hello again to Ming-Na Wen. It was a technical masterpiece for its time, and I will defend that movie on my deathbed, but it isn't anywhere near as beloved by fans as Advent Children or Kingsglaive. Understandably so. The sequel to Final Fantasy VII and the prequel to Final Fantasy XV give us all the classic iconography, over-the-top visuals, and dramatic character-driven stories we've become accustomed to from the games. Both remain uniquely excellent aesthetic experiences. It's also worth noting the existence of things like Final Fantasy Unlimited and Legend of the Crystals, as well as shorts like The Last Order or Brotherhood. When taken in totality, there's a lot of cool Final Fantasy content outside the realm of gaming. Number 2. The Witcher. Thank you, Henry Cavill, for being a gigantic nerd. So, it's confession time for me. I haven't actually played or read The Witcher. Please revoke my nerd card as needed. But you don't need to be familiar with the source material to recognize that this is just damn good television. I can't grade it on accuracy beyond knowing that it generally gets the look and feel right, and I've learned that it largely follows the existing stories with its own understandable changes. What I do know is that this is the adaptation most likely to pass the test of being enjoyed by any random person off the street who has never heard of it and couldn't care less where it came from. It's well-made, high fantasy for adults. And yes, I know the books came first, but us gamers have to take these wins where we can get them, and the Witcher TV show is a big win. And number 1, Castlevania. How did this show end up being this good? Truly, and without exaggeration, Castlevania has some of the most remarkable animation or even just imagery that I have seen on any screen of any sort. It took what was mostly an outline from the game series and changed and added quite a bit, even giving the story a kind of dark humor it didn't really have before, mashing timelines together with reckless abandon. For as much as it tells the tale it wants to and isn't beholden to its source material, it is also a gigantic love letter to the games, adding a new layer of depth to the characters, places, and even music. It's true that adapting video games well is incredibly difficult, but anyone who believes it can't be done to extraordinary effect should be made to watch Castlevania on a loop. Thank you for watching and listening. Thank you to Cornelius Baum for editing and to Avernicus for the music. And of course, thank you to all of our Patreon subscribers out there. Let me know down in the comments what other video game adaptations are your favorites that I missed. And of course, for any further content in the world of Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, MCU, DCEU, check out patreon.com/DC Productions. And for all the Final Fantasy content, check out patreon.com/FFweekly.